What's up everybody, 24/7 Bricks here, welcome back to a brand new video, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a Mini Moc series overview where I'm going to be looking at all the Mini Mocs that I've done so far and giving a brief little overall summary on how I think they turned out and how I think they went. Stay tuned at the end of the video where I will be talking about the future of the Mini Moc series, but anyway, please like, subscribe and share. If you do want to see more, leave a comment down below and let's just get straight into the video. So the first mock I'm going to be talking about is episode 1. Now this is my version of an ambush on Felucia. As you can see, there's a lot of different details going on and I do really like how it turned out overall. My favourite part is the plant life. I do really like how they all turned out. Obviously I couldn't exactly replicate the plant life on the planet of Felucia, however I tried my best to mimic it to give it the exact same sort of feel. And there's a lot of different colours, and I think one thing that really catches my eye is the pink mushroom stems. I think they're probably like the best bit about it, and it's sort of what I designed the mock around. Now there are a lot of other details which I think turned out really great. One of these being the muddy path going straight through the middle of the mock. I used a lot of tiling work to replicate the muddy, watery sorts of path, to give it the idea that many clones have trekked through this path to get to an objective or something like that. I also added some clear cylinders to replicate splashes within the muddy water from the laser fire going back and forth. Another cool little thing that I added was my own custom clones that I painted myself. Now there is a lot of repetition with the clones, as I do use them in every mock that I've done, and that's because I really like using them, and I feel like that the Mini Moc series is basically just telling their story on all the missions and all the planets they've been on. So overall I think this mock is great. There is a lot of detail. For a first mock, episode 1, it turned out really nicely. Next, moving on, we have episode 2. Now episode 2, I kind of wanted to do some sort of field or some sort of plains, so I wanted to make a lot of dense foliage. Now when doing this dense foliage, I used some of the smaller leaf pieces and I just put some of the stems in them just to create a thick, dense brush of plant life, which turned out nicely. However, it was a bit plain, so I did decide to add some purple flowers in there just to break up the colours a little bit more, as well as adding a few damaged battle droids here and there just to make it look like that there is some sort of battle, or there was some sort of battle going on. Also, I wanted to create a little bit of height, so I did decide to add a tree stump in the background just for a little bit of more colour and to give the mock a little bit more height. However, one thing that I noticed is that all the detailing I did for the groundwork has gone to waste. All the foliage covers up all the little details and all the different colours and textures that I did, and it really annoyed me as I wanted to show off all the texturing that I had done. You can see it a little bit in some places, but you cannot see it very much, and that irritated me quite a bit. Looking back on it, do I think I may have used too many plants? Yes. However, I do think they add a nice effect, but I think this mock turned out really good overall, and I do like the way it turned out. The next mock I'm going to be discussing is episode 3. Now even though there's not much detail to it, there still is little bits of detail that I would like to talk about. Now I did add a custom ATRT just to give it some more visuals and another custom clone. There is going to be a lot of repetition like I said with them. As you can also see, I did add 2 crates, which gives it a little bit more detail. The red barrel gives it a nice little bit of colour, which there is not much of, which turned out quite nicely. Now one bit of detail that I do really like is the mud on that has been traipsed around on the light grey tiled base platform, and I think it turned out really nice and it's a good effect. Moving on, again similar to episode 2, the foliage does cover the texturing that I did for the ground level of the mock, but however I did try to texture the foliage a little bit more by adding in stems as well as leaves, just to give it a little bit of difference and to give it a little bit more height and definition. But even though it does cover up a little bit of the texturing, I didn't do that much, so in my opinion it doesn't really matter, and I do like the way the foliage turned out overall. I think it gives it a nice looking effect, and it gives it the feel that this is a working base or outpost. Now I do have to say this mock was very simple. It was a bit easy, there was not much challenge or effort involved in this mock, but I do like how it just turned out. I do like all the foliage in general. Next, here we have episode 4. Now episode 4, I wanted to move away from the green vibe that I was going with, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So here we have some sort of mesa biome, or deserty style biome, with a nice arch or some sort of ruin. You could imagine there's some more ruins behind it, and the clones, a Jedi General and his Padawan are sort of checking it out, taking a few scans, and there is a lot of detail in this one. There is a lot of texturing in this one. I feel like the plants contrast with it very nicely, and I feel like there is a lot going on. The archway gives it a nice bit of height. As you can also see, I added a boulder just for that extra bit of height, as well as for that extra little bit of colouring. I did a lot of vine work going up the archway as well as around the boulder. You can't see it here, but I did add some more vinage on the top of the archway. I did add colour gradients on the ruins just to give it a little bit more detail, and I also added the ingot pieces just to make it look like some bricks had fallen off over the years, giving it a nice sort of ruined feel. As you can see, there is a lot of different plant pieces. I used seaweed to add vines, I used some stem pieces to give it an overgrown effect. I did use a palm leaf in the background just as sort of like a dead bush, and I did also use some dark leaf pieces in the left corner just to give it a little bit more colour overall. But this mock turned out really good. It was a little bit simple, but there is a lot of texturing and detail going on. Halfway through we have episode 5. Now episode 5 has to be one of my favourite mocks that I've done. There is a lot of detail and there is a lot of techniques that I used to get the mock to look this way. As you can see, it's some sort of mountainous path zigzagging up and down. As you can see, the clones are trekking down the mountain, suggesting that they've probably gone through a mission up in the mountains and they're coming back down, or they're coming down to ambush a bunch of droids. Now I wanted to go with some sort of deserty style feel, so I did a lot of dark tan as well as light tan, just to keep it to the contrast of the colours, and then I did add a couple of sand green, just to add in a little bit more colour and a little bit more detail, as well as for the plants, the sand green plants along the walls of the mountain, just to give it a little bit more of an overgrown feel. To add more colour, I did add some purple bushes, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, and to give it a little bit something to contrast with. Now the clones look great, as you can see they're trekking through, and I used a bit of snot technique on the mountain to make it look a lot better. Now I think it turned out really great with the snot technique. I have practiced with it many times before, but I kind of want to do more with it in the future, so stay tuned for that. But I think this mock turned out really well. I do like how all the colours contrast. I do like the height of it, and it's something new and it's something different that I didn't try or have never done before. Moving on to episode 6. Now I do have to say one thing with episode 6 is I sort of winged it. I sort of was just rummaging around through my pieces and I found the maroon red and I sort of just wanted to do something with it as I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in general. But I think it turned out really nice overall. I do like the colour contrast between the plants and the groundwork. There is not much detail with the groundwork as I was working with a limited amount of pieces. That's why I sort of did snot pieces to give it a little bit more height and to give it a little bit more shape. But I think it turned out really nicely. I wanted to give it sort of an alien type planet kind of feel, so I did add some coral and some purple trans flowers just to give it sort of an alien style vibe. I added a nice little purple tree and gave it a light grey bark colour. As you can see, the clones and the Jedi General are sort of fighting off the droids. And as well as this, I did add a couple of pebbles dotted around the place, just breaking up everything as it is quite red, pinky, purpley. And I think it turned out really great. I do like the style of it. Now it was a bit rushed and I do have to say I didn't really know what I was going for with this mock, but I think it turned out really wonderful overall. And I just like how it just looks. There is something about it that just makes it look good. And I'm really proud with myself for trying to do something a little bit different and as well as just coming up with it in general, really. Now here we have episode 7. Now episode 7 has to be one of my favourites out of all I've done so far. There is a lot of different techniques I use. The boulders, I use snot technique, as well as the trees, I used the technique that I used in episode 6, and I think it turned out really great. Now with the trees, I did add some dark green leaf pieces just to give it a little bit more texture. As well as this, the texture of the ground turned out really nicely as well. I like how the dark green and the sand green sort of contrast together. I also like how the plants are always growing around the boulders, giving it sort of like an overgrown sort of vibe. As you can see, the clones are fending off some Jet B2s. I did paint these Jet B2s myself. If you want to see a video on how to do them or how I do my B2s, then please leave a comment down below. But I think this mock has to be one of my favourites. I just love the look of the boulders. It turned out really nicely, and I don't know, I can't get over the fact how cool they look. Now, the one problem that I had with the boulders is fiddling around with them. There are a lot of small pieces involved, and it really did irritate me how I was trying to get certain pieces. As you can see, some light grey pieces are showing, and I wanted it just to be dark grey. But obviously I couldn't do that, as Lego is Lego and you're sort of limited in what you can do. But like I said, this mock has to be one of my favourites, and I think it just turned out great in general. Moving on to episode 8, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I wanted to do something with water. So here we have a marshy sort of vibe. I don't really know what sort of biome this is, but I do think it looks really cool. There are 2 patches of water, and I use snot technique and some trans light blue pieces just to give it that sort of effect. Underneath those pieces, I did some tile work using some dark blue, light blue, even lighter blue, and just the regular blue, just to give it a little bit more depth and contrast, just to show the deeper parts of the water. As well as this, I decided to add a bridge. I used a little bit of snot technique, and because of the pieces I used, I was able to get a little bit of a curve, giving it a nice little wooden bridge sort of curve vibe to it. You can't really see it here, but if you check out the full video, you'll be able to see it in more detail. Now moving on, I really wanted to add a vehicle to my mocks. However, due to the size and the scale of my mocks, I couldn't really add any large vehicles. However, around the time I built this mock, I got the new battle pack, so I decided to include the stap speeder from that. I think it turned out really nicely. I was able to get it at a nice angle where it looked like it was doing a strafe run on the clones crossing the bridge. Also including this, I did add some nice foliage just around the water's edge, giving it a nice sort of overgrown feeling. I didn't really add any plants anywhere else, just other than around the water, just making it look really nice. Overall, this mock has to be one of my favourites. I do like how it turned out overall. Second to last, we have episode 9. Episode 9 turned out really well in my opinion. There was a lot going on, and there was a lot of techniques that I wanted to use. Now I wanted to create some sort of cobblestone path, and I've always wanted to try do something like this in a mock, and I saw a good opportunity to do this in this mock. I decided to start by digging through my boxes, and I found some medium nougat brick pieces. Now I decided to do some sort of ruined village, and that's where I saw the opportunity to use a cobblestone path. So as you can see, the ruins sort of curve round, and on the inside of it, the cobblestone path is there. Now I didn't know really what to do with the last little bit. I could have added another piece of ruin, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to add a bit more colour, and I wanted to change up a little bit more. So I decided to add some sort of like long grass stem pieces, just to give it a little bit more colour and give it a little bit more detail. As you can see, there is quite a lot going on. It's sort of like a battle going on between the droids and the clones, and there are quite a few figures. I think I did 3 to 4 B1s and 1 B2, and as you can see, there is the Jedi General, his commander, and a regular clone just fighting them out, and I think it turned out really nicely. I added a barrel, I did use some tile pieces that I found just to make it look a bit more ruined, run down, and I added a lot of slopes and tiles. Now there's not really much to say with this mock, but I do like how it turned out, and I feel like this is a really good mock, and I would like to do a bigger version or a larger version of this in the future. Finally, we have episode 10, the end of the season for this mini mock series. Now, just to let you know that I am going to be continuing the mini mock series, I'm going to be doing a season 2, and that will come out shortly. Now, let's just get straight into talking about the last mock here. Now, with this mock, I wanted to go all out as it was episode 10, and I did a lot with it. I did an underground section and a top section. So first we'll talk about the underground section. Now I wanted to do some sort of base that the clones were invading. As you can see here, I did add a couple of lights. It's my first time trying to use lights, and I think it turned out really nicely. And moving on to the top, I did add more clones up on the top, and I added some sort of antenna array that the clones had just taken over, and now they were marching in on the underground section. I think this one turned out really nicely. There was a lot of different techniques and details I used Even though the top was kind of sort of plain and simple, I didn't want to go all out. I wanted the main focus to be the underneath section. I used a lot of tile work, and I think it turned out really nicely with how it looks and how it turned out in general. Now, I did use a bit of snot, but the main technique that I used was the hinge technique, just to get the angle of the corridors in the underground section. But overall, this mock has to be one of the largest that I've done entirely. And lastly, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for all the support I've been getting. It's really appreciated, and I really appreciate that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm producing. Now do bear with, and I will be doing more mocks in the future, so stay tuned for them. If you want to see anything different or anything new that I haven't necessarily done yet, or if you want to see more of some other stuff that I've done, then please say so down in the comments, as I really do appreciate it. I just wanted to say a huge shout out to AJ in France. He's a really good friend of mine, and he shouted me out the other day. And I really do want to say thank you to him. Go check out his channel. He does a lot of DIY, and it's really inspirational, and it's really informative with some of his videos. So just again, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll catch you in the next video.